The lasting significance of Dylan Rieder is not just that he changed minds, but the way he went about achieving this change with the self-same tools that had shaped those minds in the first place. Dylan was both product of and challenger to the collective norms and beliefs and practices that adhere skateboarding into a community. He embodied the traditions, attitudes, and a host of qualities that we might call the spirit of skateboarding. By embodying this spirit so fully and so uniquely, he forced all of us to step back and reconsider almost everything we'd assumed about what was rad, what was important, and the very activity of our looking. Orson Welles had it that, quote, "If the camera doesn't like an actor, it just stares at him." Cameras loved Dylan, but skateboarders loved him better, eventually. "That video part is all him," said Greg Hunt, who is modest, I learned, and also generous and open to talking shop for 2 hours. But you should have heard how much he stressed this point. When your love has moved away. Some filmers are crazy motivators and coaches. I was just there trying to capture it as best I could and then put it together in a way that I felt represented him in the most honest way. But it all comes from him because that's what I wanted to see. Even as he embodied and performed a selfhood detached from and disinterested in skate's status quo, Dylan affirmed the community of skateboarding and the cultural, physical, and spiritual values that stitch its borders. Suppose it was not just improbable, but impossible. What if, I mean to say, Greg Hunt had succeeded? Suppose Hunt managed to make a movie that conveyed Dylan Rieder as he was. Suppose that, by knowing his friend so well and going out shooting with him and editing that footage and presenting it as he did, Hunt achieved that most impossible thing. Gave us a way of knowing another person without ever meeting him. Suppose he successfully captured style, and suppose that style was, as Cocteau had it, his soul. Style, spirit, soul. Whatever the change he caused, it was not language that did it. Dylan Rieder was no rhetorician, was not inspired to speak a movement into existence. When he spoke on record about skate aesthetics, he did so in the blunt terms of cool, looking good. His values were those that are familiar to much of skate culture: anti-achievement, anti-quantity, anti-rank. No, the revolution of Dylan was not linguistic, it was formal, visual, and spiritual. Forgive me, but I am inclined to say that a miracle has occurred. The impossible made possible. To know the unknowable and to do it by way of performance and form on one side and perception on the other. To see a self performed and know that self, and through it know your own self more fully, but only among those of us who have been trained by the community to recognize the nuance of that performance, to perceive and give value, for instance, to a proper impossible as opposed to a cheated 360 shove. I remember better days. Once more, we find ourselves leaning on a phenomenological approach to understand this miracle. The French phenomenologist Jean-Luc Marion speaks of real lived events that transcend values, resist clear meanings one way or the other, and can only be experienced as, quote, the impossible. He means birth, death, but also love and God. Or, as Richard Kearney puts it, quote, God becomes the impossible possible. The possible beyond the impossibility of impossibility. One needn't believe in any specific God, or even God at all, in order for this to resonate. Faith can be very simple, says Simon Critchley, quote, as when I speak of faith in another person, the other person, end quote. The meaning of transcendence can be, quote, found in the human relation, end quote. By being himself and by conveying himself, Dylan Rieder changed skateboarding. By having been trained in the ways of skateboarding, that baffling set of values and contradictions, we were able to perceive Dylan as a self expressed. Between his body and ours, something was conveyed. In participating in this conveyance, we became the change that Dylan caused. Skateboarding then, the community, becomes the medium through which the soul passes, the shared values, the common language, and practices that allow a person's performances to be seen in this strange, miraculous way. It is all quite impossible, and quite the stretch, I know, to connect the miracles of faith to a beautiful skateboarder by a coincidence of language. I suppose that this is my own small act of faith, a sacredness that I have long encircled, poked at, have essayed over these years, but never confronted completely. The question has always been, what is it that we are doing when we're skateboarding? The nature of my asking has long since eclipsed the board and wheels where it began and has spread to the activities of watching and communicating. The Bulgarian French philosopher Julia Kristeva calls her field of study post-Christian humanism. To her, a humanist interpretation of God is, quote, a thinking through the body, end quote, but without a space between thinking and the body, rather, quote, a thinking with the body, end quote. I mean to say that much of what we call contemporary theology and phenomenology, the studies of what it means to be human, overlap with the activity, perception, and discussion that we call skateboarding. We move, we express, we convey, we perceive, we process, we replicate, we tweak. We are and are seen and are known. We contradict, we baffle, we change and are changed. There is only one true gift, and that is the gift that lays bare the many other gifts already in existence.